Ciao, dosto. Hello, everyone. How are all of you? I'm joined by Kaustubh Pandey today in a very, very special episode. Ask us episode काफी special है, and we're going to be doing a proper analysis on Joshua Zirkzee, linked with Man United. Had a brilliant season with Bologna, and hence I believe for this episode, Kaustubh is the perfect guest. He is a journalist, covering Italian football, and he's a Man United fan. So, Kaustubh bhai, welcome to the show. How have you been?
Thank
I,
you.
I like that your hair is open. You're embracing your inner Calafiori aura.
I mean, if my hair was dry, I would have been more like, I don't know, Ruben Neves or something because oh, there's more of a bun there. But okay, I don't like this much because वो थोड़ा messy होता है. You can't walk around वो मुंह पे लगता है and all that. But yeah, हाँ, it's been a while. I think last time I was there, who did we speak about the last time I was on the pod?
Last
Uh,
time we did a whole deep dive on So if you remember the first time you and I did a show, was called Calcio Charcha, and
hmm,
then that became a whole channel by
हाँ,
itself. So I think we just deep dived into a lot of Serie A and Calcio overall.
I think
Very
transfer
good.
news stuff.
Yeah,
Transfer
so
news
we did
stuff.
a lot of players. We did a lot of players.
Hmm.
Uh, Zaniolo. I think we touched upon Bologna. We did a lot with regards to Bologna.
Recap of
Overall,
some sort.
yeah, overall they're fantastic season under Thiago Motta, and of course वो season the last season था. One of the stars was Joshua Zirkzee. यार मेरे को मतलब एज अ सेरिया फैन जब मैं पढ़ता हूँ इंटरनेट पे स्पेशली ऑन ट्विटर कि ही इज नॉट वर्थ दिस मच एंड कैन ही डू इट इन द प्रीमियर लीग, is he physical enough? I mean, all those, it just boils me. That's the whole point of doing this video with you, so that you can shed some light on actually is Joshua Zirkzee worth the hype, and is he a perfect fit for Man United?
Like that's a complex question because last season I think he gave an interview to I think Corriere della Sera last season, this year last season, saying that he's not a proper number nine. He's more of a 9.5, like 9.5, halfway between a 10 and a 9. And he also mentioned in that interview that he would rather play with a strike partner. So
Mhm.
essentially in a 3-4, 3-5-2 or a 3-4-1-2 sort of formation, where the striker alongside him is more of that poacher, the fox in the box who stays around in the box, occupy the centre back, and he's the one who's doing that. Carlos Tevez wala thoda
Yeah,
sa role where he's slightly deeper, conducting play. Obviously, he's not very similar to Tevez because he's more of a technician, and Tevez was more of a workhorse. But
yeah.
in a front two, that is. But he's himself mentioned that, and I quite agree because we saw him at Bologna. हमने last when we spoke about Bologna when I was last on the channel. We spoke about how they play, very focused on verticality, possession. A lot of players being in midfield, be it Calafiori, Lukumi, Zirkzee himself, even Stefan Posch uh,
Yeah.
inverts into midfield a lot of times. The only wide players are the wingers, who are usually Dan and Doy, who's done very well at the Euros, and I'm
Yeah.
quite a fan of him. And the legendary Alexis Salamakers, who's a very willing runner. We've seen him. That's his only trait a lot of times on the pitch. And they're very good off the ball. On the ball, we'll see how it goes, but they're very good off the ball in terms of their movement. And Zirkzee drops deep into a call it a false nine role. He often goes past people. Say if the opposition centre back has dropped to mark him, he likes to go past him. If there's another midfielder, he's. I mean, there have been comparisons with Ronaldinho as well, which is like I see what they mean, but this is Ronaldinho. I mean, I
Yeah.
see he. Matlab, you get it. Ronaldinho is at a completely different level on a different planet, but you see the rawness with which they play. Well, when Zirkzee plays, you can see he's enjoying the game.
Yeah.
It's, it's not like he's been forced to do it or something like that. He carries himself with that कि हाँ कि खेल के मेरे को अच्छा लगता है, that sort of feeling. That's my creative outlet. something like that. So he's not someone who stays in the box. He's always deeper, dragging defenders out of position, linking up constantly.
Absolutely, absolutely. I just want to pull up some numbers from his, Serie A season from last year. So yeah, this is essentially it. So this is basically his heat map. मैं थोड़ा इसमें zoom in कर लेता हूँ just to give some perspective. Okay, कुछ ज़्यादा ही zoom in हो गया.
I think वो that Euros का
I've
rating
lost.
आ रहा है.
हाँ ये refresh होते रहते हैं. Stupid thing. There it is. Yep. So this is the heat map that's there, and I mean this just says a lot, right? I mean the way that he moves around in the pitch, you just see how, as you rightly said, how he falls back and links up play right from the midfield. So, matlab, this is definitely not the heat map of a classic number 9, right? And just to pull down a bit, so 34 games is what he played. 32 games started, 11 goals, xG of 9.01. So he's outperformed by 2 goals. ठीक है, ये goals per game 0.3, big chances missed 4. Any stat that catches your eye here, Kaustubh?
I think there's that XG stat, which is important because ideally, and Bologna are a team that like keeping possession. By the way, they were not a counter-attacking team or anything like that. They were a possession-dominant team, dependent on verticality. So they were constantly trying to get these cutbacks or passes into the box.
Yep.
They were constantly trying to dominate the final third, basically. I'm not saying they were Man City or something, but the standards of the players that they had, they did very well with that playing style. So in that, ideally, a striker should be generating more than an XG of 9. But since he's not always in the box, I mean, there's times when your fullback crosses in and that centre forward is ready for a cutback. Zirkzee is not that sort of player. So I remember the goal against Milan that he scored, and I don't remember who he scored that against. Could be Lazio, or was one of the bigger teams, where he had that left-footed shot which just I think crept in through the far post or something like that.
I think that was Lazio only.
Could be Lazio. So I thought, I think it was Lazio, which was a game that Bologna actually won. And they had good results against Milan and Inter as well. And Zirkzee has actually scored in big games as well. That is a good part about him. So he's used to these cheeky finishes, which make sure that he can overperform his XG. And I think that was also the case in his stints in Belgium, where he was on loan from Bayern Munich. So he's got that creative cheekiness in him, where even though he's not in the box, he can come up with something. But again, that's a dilemma, which it's obviously a tactical sort of debate, which is raging on Twitter. How United suit him to a system? Will he even be the first choice or not? So, I mean, I get that. And again, usme, we see that he's created 11 big chances, which is, if we compare him to someone like Erling Haaland, that again shows that he's always deeper than an average pure number 9.
Right.
He would rather have a wide player make that run for him instead of making it himself. And he's actually himself as that creative footballer who's very individualistic, and he sees football as a way of expressing himself. He's also stated that he puts the team first. And Thiago Motta has instilled that attitude into him where the team's always first, and the tactical setup matters more than the individual. And he knows that. And somehow Mota came up with a system that molded his traits into that approach. Obviously, wide forwards थे उनके पास, Endoy and Salamakers who were very willing runners, and that helps
Yep.
them as well because Zirkzee drops deeper, and the centre backs often come with him. That creates space for the wide players to run into, and leads to fullbacks. Bologna,
That's if I had to just pick one moment, Kaustubh, it was that Roma game. I know you were watching. I was watching,
yeah,
and that Salamakas chip was created by
yeah,
Joshua Zirkzee falling back and
hmm,
threading a through ball, and Salamakas made that run behind the Roma defense and chipped it over Spieler. So
hmm,
that's. अगर आप लोग, if you haven't watched that video or if you haven't watched that game, I recommend just go to YouTube and search Roma Bologna highlights. Bologna won 3-1 away. It just shows you how good. I mean, I wish I could use this clip, but probably Serie A will, use a copyright strike against me. But that is perfect. I mean, that's a perfect example of what you just mentioned.
And it's like we speak about the Euros, just to like segue. You don't see too many maverick footballers. Like England don't have those mavericks up front who can, instinctively make things happen. Netherlands have that in not just Zirkzee, they have that in Gakpo, even Memphis Depay.
Yeah,
When France probably have that in, I don't know, Ousmane Dembele. Rest of it is very robotic, very system focused. And Zirkzee is someone who's very instinctive. You can see it. He gets the ball. He sees a defender approaching him. He puts in a little dink to go past him. Things like that. He's very good at that. And he's very focused on the team, as his interviews have shown. If he would rather be part of that XG chain, technical term wise, jargonizing it, he would rather be part of that XG chain in the final third than be that uh, player who scores off a tap in at the back post. That's
right.
the sort of player. It helps him express essentially. So I'm just trying to put it in a very how I mean, thoda psyche perspectives as well. How
Yeah,
his brain functions because he's mentioned he's a street football
yeah,
and he plays to impress essentially, where
yeah.
he'll do his best to express himself and he does it for the team. And we saw it at Bologna.
Absolutely. So since we mentioned Haaland, let me just pull out the comparison of last season between Haaland and Joshua Zirkzee. Just a second. So here it is. So obviously, we spoke about heat maps, and you can just see the difference. Haaland over here is just concentrated in the box so much more than Joshua Zirkzee, right? He's like this says that this is a classic number 9, and the other is probably a 9.5.
Yeah. So I mean, wait,
And
it's like Zirkzee is very link up minded so that he can
yeah,
help the team. I'm not saying Haaland doesn't want to help the team, but Haaland's like we know what Haaland's mentioned that his perfect game would be scoring a hat trick of 3 touches. So that shows how different they are.
yeah,
And Zirkzee would rather be part of that XG chain that leads to Bologna qualifying for the Champions League. That's like the difference in how they think and how they conduct themselves on the pitch. And Zirkzee creates. Actually he doesn't get into the box. He does, but he would rather lay it off. That's the sort of player
absolutely.
he
And
is.
this heat map just kind of solidifies that point. And I won't spend a lot of time with stats because obviously Haaland is going to be miles ahead in terms of goals scored. But अगर तू देखेगा the one kind of area where Joshua Zirkzee is, I would say, different is the big chance created. The big chances created में उसका 11 है, Haaland का 6 है, and this Haaland plays with arguably superior colleagues, be it Phil Foden, Bernardo Silva, compared to what Bologna have. So this says a lot, I
Hmm.
think, right? The big service
Hmm.
created.
And uh, it's not to say that Haaland can't create, but the
Yeah,
setup that he's currently in, he has a very defined, structured role that all he needs to
yeah,
do is occupy a centre back, make that movement in the box for being that final touch that leads to goal.
right,
And अगर हम हालांड के डॉटमेंट स्टार्ट देखेंगे तो मे बी इट कुड बी डिफरेंट बिकॉज दैट रोल वाजंट
right,
एज डिफाइंड एंड ही प्लेड विद योर जेडन
right.
सैंचोज एंड ऑल दोज प्लेयर्स ऑफ द जर्गजी इल्क तो उस टाइम पे देयर इज अ
Right.
चांस कि ही probably created more but again his profile is completely different to Zirkzee. Zirkzee would if you're like restricting Zirkzee to being that final touch you are essentially minimizing a lot of his attributes. You're signing a player who's much more. And if say United are signing him by paying that 40 million clause and that 15 million controversial commission. I mean, controversial for Serie A clubs, not Premier League clubs.
Yeah,
Um,
of course.
you just signing a player who's not best for that role, and he's better off doing another role. You should rather go for someone else.
Absolutely, absolutely. Also, just since we now he's linked with Man United, and we briefly spoke about Rasmus Højlund. I just want to compare the two, and this is basically the heat maps. Can you throw some light also on how different Zirkzee and Højlund are in terms of player profiles?
So one good thing specifically about the Holland heat map is that we know we saw him at Atlanta in that season that he had the single season he had. His wide link ups were great, and he's shown at United that I mean, Haaland ka one of his best traits that I've noticed throughout is how great his link up is, how smoothly he can um, play his teammates in with one touch, how he can use his body to deceive a defender to go past
Yep.
him or something like that. He's very good at that. But the way United played was strange. Eric Ten Hag, before season started, mentioned that we want to be a transition based side. And a lot of times United played on the counter. They were like basketball games, frustratingly enough, where could be the team that was bottom of the league, Sheffield United. Sheffield United also created against United because the structure was such that ball aayegi, long ball into the final third. The pressing structure was weird, or to put it honestly, bad, which led to the opposition playing through United, and this led to United playing on the counter a lot, transition as and I wanted, but in a very negative way, which
Right.
didn't help the team. The reason why they finished eighth. Uh, and Ten Hag would have ideally wanted more possession, which would have changed how that heat map looks. Would have been more focused inside that box. Whereas the truth was, Haaland wasn't handed too many chances, which is why his goal scoring tally was about 16 in all competitions, which is actually very, very decent for
Yeah,
a
yeah,
20,
yeah.
21-year-old playing his first Premier
Absolutely.
League season with the pressure of your whatever the fee was, 70, 75 million. But next season, if all goes right, the structure is right, United are better out of possession, and they create, we would see Hoyland having a very distinct heat map where he's more inside the box. And that is what is a bit of a confusion because Zirkzee is not that box striker. He's more of that player who would rather play alongside Hoyland instead of playing instead of him. And I mean, would that there's still that dilemma कि क्या Zirkzee backup खेलेगा to Hoyland or will Hoyland become a backup? And I think to me that's very unfair to two very talented players. Because imagine signing Hoyland for that 70, 75 million fee. I know the change in ownership and change in sporting direction and everything. Imagine signing Holland for that money and then signing another centre forward of a different profile for about 55 million, including the commissions,
So, yeah,
instead of maybe signing an older striker of who's maybe 30. Hypothetically, say someone like Mehdi Taremi, who's gone to Inter, who's
yeah,
that 30s wala thoda target man centre forward.
right,
So
right.
some things don't make sense to me, but again, these are two highly talented players. So it's a dilemma.
I think just to sum it up, also according to you, both Hoyland and Joshua Zirkzee can exist together in the starting 11. Uh, Now this is again hypothetical because Man United still haven't signed him, but yeah, I mean, I totally understand since you followed both of them, and both of them have actually the common thing is they've had one season in Serie A where they've exploded
Yeah.
in a
Mm.
very different way. Now both of them could be playing together in Man United. Yeah, I would have never guessed that Hoyland scored 10 goals in the league last year. Given that how much criticism he gets, 10 goals return in his first season in England is brilliant, and 16
And
overall, right?
actually,
So
very important goals as well. Not like say winning
yeah,
4-1 and scoring the fifth. That was like some goals were like against Spurs, that 1-0, uh, the goal that made it 1-0 against Villa, the game-winning goal. Then I think a brace against Villa, which helped United win. So those goals were actually important, of a very high amount of value.
right. So, just to end this video, I want to, get your parting thoughts, not as a journalist, not, from a tactical angle, just as a Man United fan, and a message to fellow Man United fans. How happy or sad will you be when Man United actually sign Joshua Zirkzee, and what are you looking forward to?
I mean, as a person, as the way he talks, the way he carries himself, he's someone who's very easy to like. He gave that interview to La Gazzetta dello Sport. It was a video interview, and he came across as someone who's very well read, well spoken. He said that he reads a lot of books as well. So he's someone who's very easy to like as a person and as a player also. He's incredibly creative, technical, loves playing the sport. But Abhi, as you spoke, Hoyland and Zirkzee can play in the same system, but can they for United? Because they have Bruno Fernandes, and playing up top, two up top means you're essentially sacrificing one or two of Bruno, Rashford, Garnacho, Ahmad. I mean, Anthony can obviously be sacrificed. He should be sold ideally, but you can't be sacrificing Bruno, especially. And
Yeah,
playing two up top means you're complicating things for probably your best player, one of the best creators in the entire game. Um, so I think it's a huge dilemma. Um, if it's I love the player. I mean, हमने देखा उसे last season. The way he plays, the way he creates things for Bologna, makes things happen. I'm also like inclined towards thinking if he's a system player or if he's um, individually good to play in any system out there. Because his interviews may he's thanked Mota so much, saying that he's
yeah,
revolutionized my career.
yeah,
That without him he wouldn't have reached here, which is fine. But
yeah,
system wise, is he a very system focused player where he can only operate in a specific system? So yeah, I think he's a great personality to like, and he's a leader as well, a dressing room leader at such a young age. He's someone who will be very liked and loved at Old Trafford. He could be coming off the bench and scoring that vital goal against a team you're losing against, and the fans go absolutely wild that we've signed
right.
a great individual. But again, dilemma's hand, and you can't be denying that because you're signing a player worth 55 million, and you currently don't have the perfect setup to make him work. And yeah, again, the way the system evolves is only something that the manager knows. And the good part is Ten Hag has actually used a lot of false nines. Not a lot of, he's very flexible with strikers.
Yeah.
He had Sebastian Haller, who's that sort of, I would say, I call Haller a very complete sort of centre forward. He had Dusan Tadic, who played as a false nine. And the system adapted on the basis of that. And one good part about Ten Hag is that he can adapt a system on the basis of the strengths of the players and come up with these solutions to tide over issues. I mean, last season nahi kara tha, but the season before that he did that, and you could see that. And I won't be surprised if Zirkzee joins and the system changes whenever he plays, which is a very Ten Hag thing to do, and because he can adapt. That's one good thing about Ten Hag. And there are dilemmas, but I guess it would take a system change to bring the best out of Zirkzee.
Fantastic, man. Lot to look forward to for Man United fans. As a outsider, I'm very happy to see Ruud van Nistelrooy back. I think we should do a video about Ruud van Nistelrooy. Today's kids really don't know. He was something else, man. I mean, अगर अपन अभी चालू करें, we can go for an hour and speak about that era. But I think we will close this video at this. Thank you so much for giving a perspective on Joshua Zirkzee, and I'm going to be linking all your profiles in the description box. And अगर आप यहाँ तक आए तो please hit the subscribe button, like the video, share it with your friends, and also at Calcio Churcha we've just done an interview with Adriano Del Monte. उसका भी link description में रहेगा, तो go and subscribe to Calcio Churcha as well. This is Ajay Menon. I'm signing off, and that was Kaustubh. आते रहना है Kaustubh. We'll do these tactical analysis, player analysis, often, more often than not.
Yeah, for sure. मेरे को तो काम ही यही करना है. Why not? Might as well.
Right, guys. See you guys later in another video soon. Ciao, ciao.